All right. Michael Brown, version 2. We did one of these already. Unpublished. We'll release it if the crowd goes crazy. Michael Brown, formerly of SNCC, head of talent, now out on his own at Door 3 Talent, joining the Unicorn Whisperer. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well, doing well. Thanks for having me. Just
Yeah, it's
still
great
still
to
enjoying my coffee right now.
Same. Yeah, this is an early morning recording, but well worth it. I think we're gonna sneak this in for the August newsletter. I normally try to get like 3 months in between every recording, but we're live. So, and that's because you started Door 3 Talent, and I've been seeing your posts, some of them going crazy on LinkedIn, thousands of comments and likes, etc. But it's all around the AI stuff. So no surprise, people are super interested, especially in talent, about how to use AI, how to apply it. And even myself, when I took a look at some of the things that you were releasing, they are way more advanced prompts than what I am typically using. I'm like, oh, I need another sentence for this. I'm trying to write this email. And I get my little one-off advice, but after one Michael Brown prompt, I had my entire LinkedIn personality summarized. There's probably an AI chatbot out there right now who is me somewhere else. But nonetheless, like, what gave you this idea? What threw you into this space? It's been super impressive to watch you kind of build what you're building, even if it is in public. And we all know how vulnerable that is, but what got you into this space?
I think just tinkering around and trying to harness the power of something that I don't quite fully understand. Right. I think that might be the thing. Initially for me it was just like personal use, like the things I wanted to be doing and working on my content, trying to build, bots for myself. I think that's really where it all started. And then from there, I think I've been trying to figure out how to like master the strategy and implement the strategy and, also kind of figure out ways to, keep it human. And I still think we're like super early days. So, and we can get into that, but we're all figuring it out together. I think that's the other piece.
Yeah, there's obviously a market need. So like I know what I would say you've done for me, but like what gap are you trying to fill in the market? Like what is out there for talent leaders, for recruiting leaders that you're trying to solve?
I think for me, what I'm just trying to solve is, like a knowledge gap, how to, help accelerate people's strategy and, their knowledge around AI. I kind of view it as like a almost open source project. Like if I put out, something that, a prompt, for instance, it's just something that like anybody could write and they could then take it and accelerate it, build it better, reverse engineer it, applied to something else. I just think that there isn't really, it's conversational AI. So to me, it's just like I'm writing a story and I'm just going to share my story and, then people can take it from there.
It's funny. I think recruiting folks they don't realize how they've been prepared for this moment from the Boolean search days.
Yeah.
So like these just seem like way more complex, way more opportunity possibility Boolean searches. You don't have to get the if or the and logic in there to get it right.
Well, and we've always been kind of like these math, like to your point. That's a great point, by the way. We've always been these like master sleuths, right? And we've always had to like fine tune, fine craft. Like, I kind of relate a lot of the prompt writing that I do, like back to like all of the different like Google, searches and X-ray searching and like all the things that like we used to do like back in the day that, the young blood recruiters don't have to know about these days. But, it's also just exciting, like to what I was saying before. It's just like there's so much that you don't know what the thing can do. So it's just like, let's see if it can do this. And let's see if I add some data here, what else can it do? And I read a lot. I read a lot and I listen to a lot of other people. And again, I'm getting ideas from others and then, applying my spin.
Anyone in particular? Anyone you like?
You had to get me there. You know what? I can't think of anybody off the top of my head, but LinkedIn is a treasure trove of goodness out there.
Yeah, I'm forever
Actually,
saving posts.
one person that's a good one, Chris Mannion, I watch quite a bit. He's kind of like under the radar a little bit, but he's got a lot of great content out there.
I see him out there. Very headcount focused. We like him.
Yes, you do.
Yeah, no, I think for me, when I look at your prompts, it's kind of, when I was younger, I used to like build things. And the joke about building things, you always build it better for other people than you built it for yourself. And so
Yes.
When I look at your prompts, like those are prompts that I would, if I'm solving a problem, I don't write that complex of a prompt for myself. But when you wrote it, it was such a quality prompt that it kind of changed the way I thought about it. So I think there's this opportunity for you to create these things that everyone's thinking, everyone wants to do, but they might not do themselves. And I think it's just a good brand builder
Yeah.
for what it is that
The
you're doing.
thing that I like, the tip that I would just share with everyone, just even right here, is like I think a lot about like all the next steps and everything that you would like have to walk through. And I've always been somebody that, I like to be able to envision like the starting point and the ending point and all the various like hoops I'm gonna have to jump through and how much time I'm gonna have to spend. And it's how I've always like recruited over time as well as like and how I balance my time. And so I just kind of apply that same kind of concept to the prompting. But to your point, what I write for myself, and like if you looked at my own personal chat GPT, it's a hot mess compared to some of the things that I put out for people. That's for sure.
So what's your take on the state of AI within TA today? Like how prevalent is it for each of the different levels of whether it's a manager or recruiter, but where's everybody using it? Where's the biggest opportunity to make some improvements and how do you kind of see it developing as the new models get released?
I think there's a few different areas that are pretty popular right now, at least. And, it's going to keep evolving. And that's the bit that we don't know. Like, AI has just accelerated like the development of like all of these things. And so like, it's just like moving faster and faster. What I say today, 6 months will probably be totally different. But what I think right now, there's a few areas. One is the top of the funnel. There's a massive opportunity with more and more, kind of custom tailored resumes coming in, no knocks for doing it, but, I think there's just more inbound than there ever has been for companies and recruiters to sift through. And so resume matching tools are going to be, I think a very popular thing going forward. And there's some really great products that are starting to pop up out in the market. So that's one side of it. Fraud detection, I think will probably unfortunately have to happen here. It's like sad. Anybody that does rely on inbound resumes in their recruiting funnel, I don't think anybody that's really doing outbound has to worry as much about this. Maybe some LinkedIn fraud here and there, but that's less and less than having to
Here's
go.
my question
Yeah, yeah,
on the fake resumes. Who's
yeah.
motivated to create them? Right? Like
I
who's
don't
doing it?
still
Who's
don't get it either.
creating all these people?
I don't understand why people do like, is it to waste people's time? I don't quite understand the why behind it yet, or like the intent of like doing it. Maybe it's because they just want to push the limits and see if what they can do. I don't know. I don't get it still.
It boggles my mind. It's like I see every single post is there are thousands of applications, but who's the source? We're going after the street level criminals of fake resumes. We need to find the source, the supplier.
And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, I know every program's a little different, but the ones that I've been at, they've always only hired like 1% of application population anyways, or less sometimes, and so it is about your other sources anyways. So but it's time waste, right? And nobody wants to waste time. And so if there's a way to put something in place that like takes care of that for you, like I think it's worthwhile. So those are kind of like top of funnel things I think that are interesting. I do think the tools that are going to start to kind of scrape and repopulate candidate information in your ATS, that's pretty slick. Kind of keeps your ATS as an actual source, which we all know is rare that you hear a recruiter say they source the candidate in the ATS. So that'd be great to like have that come to life. And I think candidate intelligence, I think that, we're all doing these, virtual interviews anyways, right? And so like any sort of additional intelligence, that you can gather through the interview, through screen capture, through the conversation, and then applying AI to that, I think is pretty slick. I think gives you a lot of analytics and a lot of intelligence and, can close up the scorecard issue that a lot of companies have. And it's like no salesperson ever wants to write a scorecard. I'll tell you that.
No, I would say what's funny is you're touching on a lot of these metrics that I used to put in place when I was running TA that were manual, which was like the inbound to sourcing conversion rate or scorecard completion rate for managers. Like these were all different things that were like indicators of somebody's effort. Now AI is gonna change it and kind of elevate everyone to this new level of like, all right, well, now what happens when every scorecard is filled out? We're not rating people on whether or not they did it. We're rating people on the quality of that scorecard and the correlation of that scorecard to the outcome. So
Yeah.
I do think like when you're using these tools from an efficiency perspective, you're moved from evaluating whether or not a task is complete to whether or not the task is a quality task. And as a recruiting leader or an ex recruiting leader, I should say, like that's the type of stuff that, you know, is the dream because
Totally.
doing it isn't the goal. Doing it, yes, doing it is the goal, but doing it well is the
Yeah. Yeah, you want the signal, right? Like that's what you want at the end of the day. You want quality signal that yields quality results, right? And that's it for sure. I do think, and a lot of us want it faster, right? So when most companies, at least the ones I've been after or been at, they've been heavily focused. Their board's been focused on like speed and quality, speed and quality, speed and quality, and so these are the tools that help unlock that and allow the recruiters to still kind of do it in a human way and give them back time and efficiency to kind of work on the things that matter the most.
Yeah, I always have like a curiosity though about like, so when you optimize for everything, so let's say you get 1,000 resumes with a human versus 1,000 resumes, or when I was at Uber, we got 1 million resumes a year. That was crazy. So
That's
like,
crazy.
when you're looking at that much selection, you have AI to kind of organize the folks. You're definitely from a recruiting perspective going to get the most matched profile to the job description. But there's this element, I think, I don't know how many of the listeners of this podcast are non-recruiting or just kind of like regular job seekers, but there's always been this idea of like, oh, I'm not qualified, but I could do that job. There's like a correlated skill set to it. And I wonder if we're going to see like a decline in the number of like career changes post, I worked in my first job was like a retail. I worked at Target after I graduated, and the only reason I got into recruiting is because people were like, "Oh, you're super personable. You should move into this space." And Robert Half hired me. They shouldn't have hired me probably, but they did. And then I was able to get recruiting experience, and then I got so like that career change. Like our college kids or first career folks, it's gonna be super difficult for them to make a career change because all of their skill set it's getting matched for only these skill set things. Like, is there an
Oh yeah.
opportunity for a job change AI where it's like
Yeah,
I need a
job
career
change.
change?
I think we move. There's a lot of things that I think AI is going to do great, but I think there's a bunch of things that like we're going to have to like go back to the future on a little bit.
Yeah.
I do think there's going to be some manual things that kind of come back to life. And to your point, job change, some other things that are kind of scary if you think about it is like, what are like our kids going to do if all the entry level task is automated and AI'd, like where do entry level people start, right? And like what does that even look like? And so that like the SDRs of the world, like do people just like where do you build your skills to like become an account director, right? Like where do you start if you can't do the first job, right? So I do think there'll be new skills and new things that start to come about, but it's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah, agreed. So tell me about the fraud. You built recently a fraud checker prompt. Like what does that do? How does it work? What is the results that you're seeing as you implement that in some of the clients?
Yeah, so that was literally I just built that like the end of last week. I was having a conversation with a chief people officer who was trying to figure out what to do from a fraud perspective. She's had her recruiter go out on mat leave, and so she became a one person show. So she's like trying to balance all these things at once. And so she's trying to like automate a lot of various pieces of her funnel. One of the areas she's seeing is this like fraud thing because they're a fully remote company. So she's seeing all these fraud resumes come in or, people that say they're in one location, but like, when you actually get into the conversation, they're in another location. So there's a bunch of pieces that, where people are just trying to get their foot in the door, but it's wasting time for her, especially as the one person show. So we started chatting. She doesn't have any budget. So I was like, well, let's just build this thing. So I just sat down and started prompting, and I wanted to see like what could I do if I tossed in a resume. And I made like a bunch of fake resumes myself, and off of like myself. Like I used myself and made a bunch of fakos and had it to, basically just started tweaking this thing. I like basically just wanted to see like what could I do with ChatGPT. And actually it was a test on ChatGPT 5. I was like, let's see what ChatGPT 5 can do now. So I plugged it in and just started whacking away. And as I went, one of the things I do is I grab bits and pieces of the prompt and I throw it into a Google Doc so I can like start to like map my thoughts a little bit better. Uh, and then I throw it back into ChatGPT and start to see if it actually like accelerates or makes any changes. So that's kind of like it was like really on the fly. I'm building that thing, and it's not even done. That was the other thing. It's like I was going back and forth with somebody that pinged me, and they were like, I'm a salesperson. It's telling me that like my 2024 to 2024 run is a flag, and I was like, well, I mean, as a recruiter, sorry, like I didn't know what to say. I was like, well, you might want to tweak the thing. I think that it seems to work, and a lot of it was just like based on like gotcha moments or things I'd thought about. So it was a lot of just like build in a little, prompt and then also kind of I used a talent ladder. Not everybody has one available, but like I used that to help kind of train it to think about like the various levels that people go throughout their career. Cause some of the time you see in these fake resumes is one of the big gotchas are people that write these really formal, big enterprise experiences, but they're in like entry level roles. And so it's kind of like a dead giveaway. I tried to train it for that. Yeah, just, really kind of like just thinking through all the various bits of my career and like where I'd gotten gotcha'd.
No, I love that. I would love to see that fraud detection tool. So we give out a resume template on Unicorn. So if you go to the Knowledge Center and you go down to I think it's like the first or second article, you could download a resume, and it comes with some advice that I heard you kind of mention here, where it's like, talk about progression. So we also have a recruiting career ladder if anyone's interested, and a compensation and leveling framework. So on the career ladder, you could see how position responsibilities expand, and also what are the competencies as a recruiter becomes more senior. So like communication and executive presence become a little bit more important as you get senior. And then as you look at the compensation and leveling framework, you could see how compensation rolls up. Now, it's a framework, it's not what your exact salaries would be. There are tools for that. But those three things, I think, for the listeners here, if you're trying to figure out like, how do I apply somewhere? How do I write a resume that correlates to a framework that recruiting leaders see? And then how do I build in these competencies that supplement my tactical experience? Like, those are the things that we advise in the resume. So download those things on top of the AI giveaways that we're talking about here. And I would love to kind of do that check. Let's look at the fraud detection tool on that resume, because I'd like to really give something to candidates, to the real candidates that are out there that are really trying to represent their experience well. And we talk about progression, promotions, pedigree. It's like the three P's of like what gets somebody recognized by those recruiters' eyes, and then see if that stands up to the AI test. I think that's part of what we're trying to do at Unicorn a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's important that candidates try these things out too, right? Like it's great that recruiters have one side of it, but we want the candidates to know about it as well. Like the last thing I really want to have happen is like create a bigger divide between recruiters and candidates. Like it's already always felt a little bit like an us versus them, right? And in the world of, we are the gatekeepers, right? And if you will, but it's done well. I don't think that divide needs to be there, but like I think demystifying and creating trust and sharing about like how the selections are made. There's one of my favorite new tools out there is a resume match on the front end, and they use this concept that they've built called Glassbox AI. And it's really just a simple concept, but it's basically they built their AI in a way so you can see how it's making every selection or applying every filter, so that you can actually begin to trust what it's doing. And I think we just need a little bit. We need to apply that same sort of thinking to both sides, right? It creates the trust and the transparency, and that's what we all need.
Yeah, I really think that at the beginning, everyone's going to be like, this is my specific formula and secret. And then what will actually get the adoption of the things that, that I want to say candidates, but like real people want to see how their information is being processed. I think we live in a world where everyone's data is everywhere. So if you're going to use it, at least show me how you could use it so I could give you that. We all know everyone's using it. So
Yeah.
just show me what you're doing so I can at least choose to engage where I choose to engage, or like leverage my consumer behavior to help get that company the attention. But it's an easy transition here. So like what makes a good prompt when you're building something, when you're a recruiter and you're building your first prompt or you're building any prompt, like what is a good structure? What are the things that you see are like important for recruiters to be adding into their prompt engineering?
Well, I think setting the stage with your prompt is really important. Um, I think it's and you can A/B test all these things, which is really cool to see. But I think what matters is depending on what sort of conversational AI tool you're using, sharing what you want it to be. Like if you want it to be, if you're going to do a content review, you want it to be an enterprise marketer, right? Or you want it to be, a content strategist, right? And so like sharing what you want it to be, because then it kind of moves into that mode of, okay, I'm going to be this thing to do this job. Right. And so that if you kind of build it that way every time and then applying like a ton of, got to think through all the various like potential levers you could pull in how you want to build that thing and how you want it to look and how you want it to feel. And do you want it to be in a particular structure? One of the things that we used to do at Sneak was we take the feedback and apply from like a virtual transcript and have it do an analysis and then have it spit out the feedback, but in a particular way. So we could dump the feedback into Greenhouse really quick. Right. So it's just like a very, very like a very fast. And so like the more you think through like what you want your end result to be, look like, feel like, be structured like, the better off you are. So it's garbage in, garbage out, same sort of concepts is so like feed it a lot, and then go from there. That's how I tend to start.
Yeah, your prompts are very comprehensive, and I like the way that they're structured. I think it's easy to make mistakes in the I always find myself. I think prompt engineering, believe that's a now generally accepted term, is going to be a lot about like the quality of your prompts. Are going to be how many revisions that you have to do in order to get your desired output. So, what are the mistakes that you're making that you've already found and corrected? Like, what are the things that you think is like that beginner's mistake to building a good prompt?
I think it's being satisfied with it right off the bat, right? And just running with it. I think there's so much like, and you can go down the rabbit hole. So I think like, I guess the definition of like high quality, who knows what that is just yet. But, I think it's the more you can structure it, the more you can control it. Like, there's lots of good free content out there. Ali K. Miller does like some great killer content. And she does like a free masterclass about like how to use ChatGPT. But like even just like using like telling it to end a concept. Like I didn't even know that was a great little like tip that I learned recently of like, okay, this is it. We're done with this. Now move on. Because otherwise it's going to keep thinking about that thing or applying some concepts into your future conversation. So that was just like a great little tip for like, and that's why I actually structure the prompts really chunked out like that, because I want it to be thinking. And the double dash, ends as is the killer.
The thing that I hear the most from folks trying AI for the first time or early on and it's like they get the bulk content right, but they can't get rid of this tone of like, it's almost like an overly marketing, like
Mm.
it has like a setup sentence and a closer for everything. Like you wouldn't believe not only this, but this as well. It's like you could tell that it has its own, it's almost like it almost has a tone that it knows is like the starting tone. And it's like, I used your LinkedIn analysis prompt to help guide the tone of the future prompts that I put in, because that it was driving me crazy. Like, I do not speak like this. And yes, you are summarizing this information in a way that's more digestible, but no one's going to believe that's me. And like when I'm, I've done a couple of posts where it's like, now I get like there's like trends in the sales emails people try to get with CEOs, right? And now one is like, "Hey, my friend found you for this pod." I have a list of maybe like 40. It's got to be all the same situation, but it's like, "Oh, my friend found you. We think you'd be great for our initial podcast. You'll be the first one on it." And I was like, "There's 40 of you who are starting a podcast and I'm the guy?" Anyway, so that's the type of stuff like, when my interest in having you on and speaking to this community is like you have gotten to the I think recruiters are doing a million things a day, especially if the candidate fraud really is driving like resume reviews, all type of stuff, right? So there's a big do more with less. So there's a lot of folks out there trying to get to like it works, but it's kind of not helping me, and I have to rewrite a lot because it is. So like getting to that place where like, oh, it is working for me now. It feels like it's my person. That's what I saw in your work that I think was super interesting. How do you advise people to get to that? It's almost like you're developing a relationship, but it's like it's
It's
learning you.
it's
What are
literally
ways that you
it's
get them to
kinda
do that?
like it's like applying it into, like, everything that you do. It's funny, I was having a conversation with a buddy of mine, and I was like, I have to I'll admit it to you too, it's a dirty little secret, but but it's like, I use the thing for everything. I mean, I don't know if I make very many decisions anymore without, consulting ChatGPT and I've trained it on, my I had to figure out kind of where did I have the biggest amount of my own personal writing that I'd done over years. And LinkedIn was like, I was like, oh, duh. It's all there. So that was where that started. But I've since like I've gone back into my Google Drive, all my historical like and as time goes and you'd have different jobs and you do different things, like you write differently, but it still has your style. I worked at a place that ran the Amazon 6-pager model too. And so for me it was like I had all of these memos and documents that I'd written that were like, "Oh, this is perfect." So it's like I've just like been trying to like accumulate everything I'd ever written, and I dumped it in and then started just playing around like I need to make this sound more like me. Like if I'm going to like use this thing and more efficiently, it needs to sound more like me. I also want it to talk more like to me, more like me. So like my chat GPT swears at me and I swear back at it. We have a lovely relationship. It is awesome. I've even named it Francisco. So, like I've got a friend in Francisco and he likes to swear at me a lot.
Okay. I don't know
But
if I'm ready for that yet. I'm not, I guess, the stage 2 of
we had to
AI
get creepy.
adoption.
We had to get a little creepy.
I like it. Well, so I know that we're kind of running up on time. What resources of yours can I send folks to? Like, I notice you're building out Door 3. I see a lot of the prompts that you're building out there. How can recruiters or recruiting teams engage with you as it relates to, building some of these things out, whether it's, for their own knowledge or if they want to engage with you more formally?
I think, they can, LinkedIn is a great resource. I'm all over there. And I share a lot of what I'm building out in the open. Big believer in sharing it out. I'm going to share some things with you as well. So people can, head to your website. And then, at some point in time, I'll get around to getting this stuff on the Door 3 site. But for now, LinkedIn and your site are probably the best places.
Awesome. Well, look, I really appreciate you jumping on a second time. I think the AI conversation is ever evolving. It's super interesting. I think you're making strides in it that we are very recruiting TA focused on Unicorn. And so seeing somebody go from your role directly into such a technical deep dive into building prompts and applying them for our space has been super inspiring. So I encourage everybody to give you a follow on LinkedIn. You're up to 40,000 now. So it's not like you're joining somebody brand new. This guy is one of the most popular LinkedIn influencers that I follow. Everyone take a look at what he's building. And if you're like me, you're saving all of his prompts to your own folder so that you can have them for later. Always interesting to chat with you. I look forward to seeing how Door 3 continues to evolve, and maybe we could release some pretty exciting stuff as it relates to like recruiting specific prompts. Appreciate you spending some time with me.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, thanks, Mike.